Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. I am joined by
Tyler, glad to be here. Usually work in the back of the camera. I decided to switch things up, come to the front, and introduce myself.
Absolutely. We apologize in advance for this hotel lighting. I know it's not the best, but it's the best that we could do at this current point in time as we record this video. We had a chance to see over a half hour of Murkmire gameplay. That's the upcoming expansion for ESO dropping in Q4, so sometime at the end of the year. It seems to be up the alley of ESO players who have wanted to see more about the Argonians and the Black Marsh, so I'm personally looking forward to it a lot. It's one of my favorite races in the Elder Scrolls franchise, but this gameplay had not been released to the public, so we're going to talk about pretty much everything we had saw there.
Yeah.
And our general thoughts walking away from there. Let's start off with the person who demoed the game. His name was, I think, /Lurk on Twitter.
Yeah. He was a very nice guy.
Awesome guy.
Very genuine. Knew a lot about the game. He called it his baby, so he definitely knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, he cared about it a lot. And so let's start off with him addressing that ESO didn't really start off the way that they wanted it to. He said they made a lot of assumptions, and it wasn't until their relaunch that they really got the 180 on the game and started turning things around. So once again, this seems to be a step in the right direction, which is very important for this game, which I think stays relevant because it constantly releases these updates. We did notice one thing though, which was addressed pretty often, was it's a work in progress.
It was, and he said this, like Matt said earlier, it is coming out in Q4 sometime later within the year. And there were some textual bugs, some pieces of grass wouldn't load, or a ladder wouldn't render, or an audio line wouldn't queue at the correct time. And it was things like that. It's nothing crazy. A few lines of code would fix that up and no problem.
I was going to say this now. If I laugh, it's because Vin's on the background and you know what he's doing because you know how he is in the videos. Anyway, let's continue onwards. We saw two tribes throughout our exploration in the Black Marsh. One was the Bright Throat, the other was Deadwater, I believe. And these two kind of contrasted each other. You had the Bright Throat, which were more cerebral. They were more about let's talk, diplomatic approach, and the Deadwater, how would you describe it?
Deadwater is more of a brawl type side, very aggressive, primitive in a sense where it's a fight instinct instead of a politician type diplomatic approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had actually pitched the idea that based off the way the developer had told us we want to mentally engage the player, there were traps littered all over the dungeon. I mean, tons of them, man. There were flame traps. There was a thing called a strangler that pulled you into a thing called like a blueberry shock.
Yeah, there was a praying mantis trap.
It was crazy.
Developer who was showing us the game had pitched the idea that they really focused on wanting the player to become aware of their surroundings and get out of that dungeon, get out of that fight in one piece intact, because there are environmental things that will do damage to you and will make that fight against a monster even harder.
Yeah.
And with that, I think they really is drive home the point that they are focusing on story instead of adding new abilities and action this, action that.
Absolutely, and I thought that was good because then you pitched the idea that with all this mental engagement going on, the traps and whatnot, that perhaps they're going to take it to another level with you have these two kind of gameplay style approaches within these tribes. You have one who's more aggressive, one who's more let's talk it out. Both play styles are actually suited for Elder Scrolls Online, where perhaps these types of tribes can fortify the storytelling in a way that mentally engages the player. If you're more along the lines of the Bright Throats, you join them, you take their path, you'll encounter maybe more puzzles along that quest line, kind of like what we saw in the instance which was demoed to us, where /Lurk had told us that puzzles are going to be something as well because he wanted to keep the player constantly engaged with what was happening.
Yeah, and he had said that it's something they worked very hard to do to make it mentally engaging enough where you're challenged and you want to keep coming back and keep trying to drop that bridge, keep trying to move across that piece of land, as opposed to looking it up, going online, and just fixing it that way.
So a good example of this was actually an Incinerator Room that they had encountered, where pretty much there were red radiuses that would pop up on the ground showing where an explosion would take place. And it was almost prepped for what was a future boss fight, that a type of slob-looking enemy came up from the ground, and there were more of these incinerators, and you had to lure him into the incinerator to do heavy damage. Now, he did say you could kill them easily with your weapons. He had a maxed out character. I thought it was cool that they were bringing the environment into the boss fights. It seemed like parts of the game were really feeding off each other in a new way, which is why I think that you're onto something with that storytelling aspect of whether you're siding with the Bright Throats or the Deadwater, and the examples that we had seen, that perhaps the gameplay will be fortified in those areas.
No, exactly, and I think that it's a unique storytelling aspect if they do go along that lines. You join the Deadwaters, you kind of devolve into violence and all-out war, or you can go along the lines of a lot of dialogue, a lot of charismatic choices, trying to persuade people to do this and do that in an approach to kind of make peace in between these two groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads to more role playing, that leads to more of the traditional Elder Scrolls experience, which a lot of people are looking for in ESO in many ways. And over time, they've added little elements of that to make it feel more at home for those hardcore ES fans. And I think this is another step in the right direction. There were also multiple biomes inside this DLC. We only saw 2 of them. They weren't that distinct. They were changed up enough where one was more heavy vegetation and rocky, while the other one was swampy.
You can contrast that with the second biome that we saw, not as susceptible to the damage, the water damage that we saw earlier in the first biome. A little bit more vegetation, thicker trees, more undulation in the ground. And as I said earlier, it's not susceptible to that damage that comes with the constant heavy rain. And like I said, it has to do with immersion and the way that they want you to get involved in the game. As you move further inland, as you move from state to state in the United States, or as you move from area to area within the realm of Elder Scrolls, you will get different gameplay environments, whether it be weather. And I think they do a good job of implementing that.
Yeah, absolutely. The exploration was along the lines of something we had kind of seen in a Bethesda Game Studios game, where he ended the demo and there was a giant ship that was stuck in a very big tree, and there was a waterfall to the left. And it was one of those situations where you looked at it and you went, I want to explore that. And I think that's key to a DLC like this, or any type of Elder Scrolls content, is that feeling that really brought the series to life. If you see that, you can explore it. And it just keeps looping into that. Just these intriguing environmental designs that keep roping you in. It's like just one more area, just one more bit of exploration, just one more story. And I really like that about it, because I'm infinitely curious about what was going on with that ship. And what's funny is none of this was main story stuff. The Deadwater Tribe, the Bright Throats, these are core to Black Marsh, but the main story is about finding some type of Argonian relic. They haven't really revealed many details on that, in fact. And so I looked at it and thought to myself, you know what, if these aspects are interesting, then what about the actual main part of the story? Yeah,
and I think it's a very good thing that they're focusing on story. Like I said, we saw a 30-minute window into a 15 to 20-hour game. He had said that it's similar to the size of Clockwork City. So we don't know what's going to happen. We saw a little window into a big picture.
Exactly, yeah. So this could be evident of a full experience, or it could actually be maybe not as good. There's always that potential there, but I like their focus on story. We had a chance to ask a couple of questions afterwards. One of them I asked was it going to be kind of like Morrowind, or Somerset, where new skills were added through this DLC? And they had said no. The only changes they were really making in upcoming content was through the Wolf Hunter DLC. They retconned the entire werewolf skill line to fit into that part of the DLC. But as for Murkmire, there's not going to be anything along those lines.
And we had asked him, with a big expansion like this, does it scare away players knowing that the game's been out for 4 years? You have expansion after expansion. He said that as of tomorrow, the werewolf update will drop, and that'll be their 19th update of the game. Does this scare away a new player? And he said no, it's completely user-friendly. They want people to come, and this is part of the draw. They want people to explore the world. He said they updated the tutorial to show people how to play the game. You get more in depth, you get more analysis into how the game works, and I think that it's a very good thing. I think as a game developer, you want people to come play your game, and I won't lie, and I think you experience the same thing. When you see a game is out for a while, you see DLC after DLC coming out, it kind of turns you off. I think it's a good thing that it's new player friendly. And I think that plays into part of the environmental kills, in a sense, helping you with that boss, the Pokemon boss. I explained it as the slime one, the mud one.
Yeah, kind of like Muck.
Muck, exactly. And I explained it like that. And I think it's a very good thing that players like that will be assisted and kind of help on the skill curve of the new DLC. Obviously, new player, max players won't have that issue. But someone coming in new who just picked up the game as of the day the update came out, I think it helps, and I think it helps with immersion and helps with retention.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's good news for everybody. So we'll see in due time. Hopefully at some point we get our hands actually on the DLC, a more extended look at it. I know with Somerset, they allowed me to play an extensive beta of that weeks before it officially launched, and I thought that was fantastic. That's currently my favorite ESO DLC. So it's interesting to see if Murkmire can actually top that one. We'll check it out in due time, but we hope you enjoyed our impressions of the Elder Scrolls Online DLC Murkmire. Any final thoughts?
I think you ESO fans has a good thing in store. I think the people who developed this game really care about it. I think it shows, so I think you guys are in good hands.
Absolutely. So we hope you enjoyed, and we will catch you guys next time. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with our Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active, and love you all. Peace.